Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So we have got a little project going on here this morning. Hopefully we can assemble a video and make it worthwhile for you to watch. So we have a 2000 Mazda Miata 1.8 liter MX-5, I believe is what its designation is. And here's our victim. So right now it's December of 2022, and you can see this expired in October of 22. So I'm feeling a little bit of pressure here. I need to get this thing straightened around so that we can drive this without being worried about being pulled over. Those cops, so they don't miss that stuff. So, you know, I got like my paperwork from when I had it inspected and rejected, but it's getting old, right? So I need to get this handled. So let's talk a little bit about the problems I'm having and a little bit of context that I think will help. We live here part-time. This car stays here. When we leave this location, I disconnect the battery and we walk away for sometimes months on end so the car doesn't run. What it needed this time around was an inspection sticker once we got home, and it was already expired. I hook up the battery, I go up to get my inspection, and it fails. Keeping in mind that there are no engine lights on the dashboard. It's clean, it's clear, there's no problem there. It failed on emissions. And that can happen when you disconnect a battery for a extended period. So what you can do is drive for 50 miles or so, or give or take, and in theory those codes would kind of resync with the ECM, and you would resolve your problem. I had 5 different codes that were sort of in the ECM. They don't have like the typical P0 XXXX. We don't have any of that. This is more in the smog check area, right? So there's no code per se, but there's a description in terms of what is causing the problem. So we hook up the battery, we drive the car, and I was able to resolve, I believe it was 4 out of the 5 just by driving the car. But now we have an EGR and or VVT descriptive code showing up that we have to resolve. So EGR is exhaust gas recirculation. VVT is variable valve timing. I'm not going to get into the VVT part of it. I think the EGR is definitely the way to go as a first step to try and resolve the problem. As far as drivability is concerned, the car drives perfect. Like, you would never know that there was any issue whatsoever, with one single exception, is that when it's sitting at idle, it smells. It's not normal, right? It's very pungent, sort of will take over the garage, and that's what you can smell. So I believe that the problems are related. That's why I want to look at this EGR first. Now, I did go over to the parts house today and picked up a couple of parts that we have here. So here's our EGR valve. That is $145 as it sits here. Comes with a gasket. You can see we've got 2 bolts, one here, and then we've got an electrical connector. I did do a visual, and it looks like it's probably going to match up well, so I think we've got the right part. In addition to the EGR valve, there's 2 other things that I picked up while I was at the parts house. This is a valve cover gasket assembly, and I noticed it's leaking again, and I replaced this about 10 years ago. And I did not use a gasket sealer at that time. I actually have a video on the channel where Evan and I did the timing belt, which this was a part of that service. And I noticed it's leaking again, so it's getting some more love, I guess you might say. Maybe I'll do an individual video on that. It's beyond the scope for today's video. And then I also noticed that we've got a coolant smell, but no obvious leak. So I rented this from the parts house, and we'll be giving this back to them. But I should be able to pump up the system, find out where it's actually leaking, and go there. But again, outside the scope, but that's sort of what I'll be doing out here. Maybe capture a video on that one too. What I use in order to take a look inside the engine in terms of what codes and so forth are being presented here is this device called the Blue Driver. It's got an OBD2 connector on it. You slip it in and then get on your phone on an application. This has been working really well for me. I've always had a code reader, and the one that I have is probably at least 20 years old. And sometimes it won't read, it won't connect to certain cars. And I was like, okay, this thing's really old and maybe I'll just upgrade. Whereas this one is actually web connected. So whenever it needs an update, it gets it. And it's got some features on it that I really like. Like if you start to diagnose a problem and you get to it and you're like, Then it asks you, would you like to go on Amazon and go buy this part? Right, stuff like that. It's kind of cool. But that's basically how it works, and it shows you what's going on in the background and whether or not you actually have a code or not. It does both. It was about $100 if I remember right. I've had it for a couple years now. I've got a Jeep down at the beach that I'm constantly using. It's got all kinds of problems. But I brought it back here with me so that we could take a look at the Miata and do the diagnostic work. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to change this EGR valve out and then take a look and see if the code immediately resolves. It may need to be driven. I don't really know yet, and see where we get, right? EGR is on the passenger side toward the back of the intake. It's located right here. There's the top of it. There's this electrical connection. And then the two bolts, they're going in it in this direction. That's going to be my approach to getting this thing out of here. First step was disconnecting the battery, so that's already been done. Right, well here's the old metallic gasket. X is indicating that it was away from the part, so it goes like this, right? And that goes up against the, I guess, the block. The new one has these raised sections on it, right? And it looks like it crushes when you tighten it up. I don't actually know which side that goes on. My instincts tell me to put that on to the... So if it's raised this way, right, it's sticking out, is to put it on the part like that and bolt it up against the car like that, and that should crush flat, is what I'm thinking. So I don't actually know. It's not specified, so we'll see if that works. Here's the shop manual for this car, and about a third of the way in, here's the torque spec for it. This is the actual, this is how the numbers are to be interpreted, which are over here, right? So you've got the Newton meters, which is not in parentheses. You got, looks like some kind of metric, kg, FM, and then you've got the basic American foot-pounds. So it's going to be 19 to 25 Newton meters, then that, I don't know, metric designation, and then foot-pounds, 14 to 19. My wrench does foot-pounds and it does newtons, so I've already preset that. I'm going to go ahead and install it now, and then we'll torque that down and read the codes and see what we get. Already hooked up the battery. Dashboard's clear. Let me hook up that OBD2 scanner. So disconnected the battery, and I was wondering about this. It lit everything up again. Including EGR and VVT system is still got the exclamation point to it. Got a catalyst, evaporative system, oxygen sensor heater. Got to drive this vehicle another 50 miles. All right, so I'm about 30 miles. If we're using the 50-mile reset zone whenever the battery is disconnected to get codes and so forth to go away. I'm 30 miles into that. So I'm out north of my place. It's very rural. I got on the highway and pretty much could go any speed I dared go because I want it to get like hot. I want to see if I can like burn this thing out and blow it out, right? So here's just a quick look at the dash. Again, we have no engine lights on whatsoever. Let's do a scan and see where we're at. Still problems. EGR VVT. That one's got me concerned. We got a catalyst lit up and an oxygen sensor. So I'm going to turn this bad boy around, head back to my house, hopefully get that full 50 in, and then and do another read on it and see what I get. All right, just pulled into the driveway. We did 67 miles. Let's scan it and see what we got. Back to the drawing board. It is several days later, and look what we have. That is a clean smog check. Green check marks all the way down the line, and a smog readiness pass. So the problem is that I didn't really do anything other than change the EGR valve, and in hindsight, I'm wondering whether or not it even needed to be changed. I had read somewhere or saw somewhere online that maybe this thing needed to be started 20 times in order for it to pass its own internal check. I don't really know, and I'm wondering, and I'm very suspicious if I put a $145 part on this thing, it never needed it. It never needed it in the first place. It just needed to be started 20 times. I mean, it's Christmas. My wife's running around. You know, she's putting miles on the thing, and I took no more action to resolve the EGR than just her driving it. And she got her paperwork with her in case she gets pulled over. And it took care of itself. So I'm going to go get this thing inspected. If you got something out of this, I do appreciate you giving me a sub and a like. And we'll see you on the flip side. But now it's time for a car inspection and get this thing legal. We're out. So EGR is EGR. All right, here's the shop manual. 19 to 25